Hello, I am Dr. Brittany Tuckland White, Life Professor and Personal Empowerment Strategist. And today I have a message for educators about the wave of the future because we are not going back. Thank you for listening to this message. First, I would like to say that I am not a medical doctor. So when I mention anything about what is happening in the pandemic, please know that this is not medical advice. I am a doctor, but not that kind of doctor. So there are 5 things that I want to talk about today. These are suggestions, take them or leave them, but this is what I truly feel that I need to share with educators across the world, but particularly in the United States. I am a former K-12 educator, and I am currently an educator in the higher education institution as a professor. So I understand a lot of what's happening in the school system. There are a few things I would like to share. 5 things that I think are important for educators and leaders. So when I say educators, everyone involved in the education profession. There are things that need to take place, discussions that need to have. And this is beyond whether to open or reopen. That is a tough decision. I understand both parts. Again, I understand the need for students to be in the classroom, especially with how the schools shut down before the summer. And we all know that the summer slide is a real thing. But then I also understand the need to want to keep your children safe as well as yourself safe if you are an educator or a leader. I understand the parents' needs for wanting their children to stay safe, but then I also understand the parents' desire to go back to work. And that could be parents, guardians, or caregivers, whatever the situation may be. So I understand the need for that. So there are things that I want to share, 5 things that I want to share about the message for educators and the wave of the future. First of all, this is an unprecedented time. This is an amazing time to be an educator. And I know it doesn't feel that way. I know it doesn't look that way. But if we take this as an opportunity and look at what we can do in a time like this, I guarantee you will feel the same way. So a few things I want to share. Personal development is a must. And you're probably thinking, what in the world does personal development have to do with the decision to reopen a school or not? I would like to say we need to think about what is going to occur, because a date is coming. Whether you choose to reopen or not, you're going to be involved with children, your faculty, your teams at some point. So we can't keep avoiding that part of the decision. Whether it's going to be physical or virtual, there's going to be interaction to take place. And if you were not able to engage in some form of personal development during the pandemic while we were all away, we still have the opportunity to do so. And what do I mean by personal development? It's a form of self-care. And I know some people keep self-care at the level of, I just want to binge watch on Netflix over the weekend, have me a great meal, manicure, pedicure, massage, play golf, or whatever the case may be. Read your favorite book, favorite cup of tea or coffee. Those are important, and those are necessary for you to maintain a sense of sanity. However, it goes deeper than that. Self-care is also personal development, and I'm talking about really working on you. Have you taken the time to go through a process of examining your limiting beliefs around 4 areas: health and wellness, spirituality, finances, and relationships? If you haven't taken the time to see what is happening in those areas of your lives, you're not showing up as a whole person to your faculty, to your staff, and to your students. And I know this personally. And although I'm able to compartmentalize a lot of things, subconsciously, when things weren't the way I wanted them to be in all of those areas, I wasn't showing up fully for my students or for my teammates when I was working in K-12 or my department in higher education. There are some things that I had to deal with, either whether it was from childhood, teenage life, young adulthood, that kept me from being 100% of who I was. Because who you are at your core shows up. What are your personal values? What is your belief system? Are you being authentic to yourself? Are you coming from a place of abundance, or do you always operate in a place of lack or the mindset of lack? So self-development, I won't get too deep into that, but think about those 4 areas. If you haven't taken the time to really sit and be one with your thoughts and look at all of these areas, I suggest you do that, because like I said, how you show up personally is really coming out professionally. We are on the front lines of a lot of things, and we take in a lot, whether it's from administration or their administration, from parents, from the community, from students, from other educators. We constantly take, and it's always thrown at us. And we can't be our full selves because we haven't taken the oxygen mask. Like if you ever been on the plane, although a lot of us are not flying these days, if you ever been on the plane and they say, do yourself first and then you support someone else. And I think for a lot of educators, we have not taken the time to put on our own oxygen mask. And personal development is different from professional development. I want to make that clear, because I know some people say, I go get trained all the time and I'm sitting in these trainings and workshops. No. I'm not talking about content. I'm talking about you. The second thing I want to talk about now is, regardless if we go back to school virtually or physically, you must build relationships. And you're going to hear this a lot. It's going to come out a lot. And put a post out like at the beginning of the pandemic, like, hey, what if we all just stopped teaching? And I don't think it registered with people what I meant until like a few weeks later. And I'm going to say it again. And I had to deal with this and sit with this before I actually wanted to put it out. This is not the time to truly teach content. As a person in the STEM field who believes in all things content, this is not the time to teach content. You need to build relationships. Students have been away for months from what was normal to them. So much trauma, so much chaos going on in their lives. And even though it may not be the chaos that you think it is, if you get thrown off your routine, whatever the case may be, that's your level of chaos. So think about, as an adult, how you felt. People have said Maslow before Bloom's. And I want to say, they can go parallel. I'm going to say they can go parallel. The brain is not going to function properly if it still feels that it's not safe. There's no amount of content that you can teach right now for a student to take that in and you think everything is going to be okay. The scores are going to be trash. And I hate to use that term, but the scores are not going to be great anyway. They're already bad from summer slide, and then you have the pandemic slide. So for this semester, and I'm proposing this, take it how you want to, but for this semester, how about you just start building coping skills? All of that personal development you did, how about you bring some of that into your physical or virtual classroom? People keep telling me, I can't get the kids engaged. I can't get the kids engaged. You have to make them want to be engaged. All summer, I've been on a lot of virtual conferences and platforms, whether I was speaking or as a participant. And one virtual event, it was a 3-day event. It started from noon and it ended around 7 p.m. Yes, that long. And hundreds of people stayed online. Now, people were in and out, of course, but majority of us stayed on for the entire time. Of course, there were breaks in between. And after that, I had to think to myself, what in the world made me stay on this computer for all of these hours? They were giving me something of value that I really needed and wanted. I felt connected. I wanted to be there. I was having fun interacting with people. And this is the time for us to do that. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to venture outside of the education world, but the business world, the marketing world, all of these other industries are doing this, and they're doing this at better than we are as educators. And I know it's possible. Just let's not think about content first. You may spend the next few months really talking to kids because they have to feel safe, and their home environments may not be conducive for learning. Even if they get to school, they still may not feel safe because now they're looking around at everyone. And remember, I said, how you're showing up is how they're going to react, right? So you have to be centered, and then now you're helping them to be centered. Number 3, because I told you I had 5, and this is probably one of my favorites. Like I said at the beginning, this is the time for us to just knock what traditional education has been out of the water. First of all, what we thought was important about the subject areas, and this is going to be, some people may not like this. And again, as a STEM person or a person in a STEM field with a STEM background, I had to sit with this again. What is really important? What subjects are really important? What skills are really important? So remember, I think the tests are not going to matter right now, and it's a wash. Not a wash to where you can't teach, but that should not be the focus to get these scores. That's not the focus. But now we have the opportunity to reevaluate what curriculum actually looks like, what it should be like, and what are we really preparing students for. We were preparing for college and career readiness. Now there's another thing to add: college, career, and entrepreneurship. Those are the things that we have to prepare our students for. And guess what? We do not have to do this alone. There are businesses that are still thriving, and I know it looks scary, like everyone's shutting down. Everyone's not shutting down. There are people who have already been in an online space. They were already putting systems in place, and they are actually thriving. Like, I know some businesses who are tripling their income. Someone I know who knows someone, so I'm 2 degrees of separation from this person. He made $900,000 in his business in 1 month. So I'm saying this to you, we need to rethink how we're training and developing our children. Rethink how we're training and developing our future educators. What are we training and developing them for? No one thought about this pandemic happening. So now we need to step back and say, whoa, what are the businesses that are actually thriving in a situation? What skill sets does someone need to either be an employee or an owner of this type of business? We need to rethink if we're truly trying to prepare our students. And the reason why I'm adding entrepreneurship or another avenue is because colleges are being faced with the same thing. A lot of people are not coming back to college because they're like, for what? I can go work or create my own thing over here. So even colleges need to make a shift, and that communication needs to happen with K-12. And that's why we need these partnerships with the universities. If you are in the K-12 industry, having a traditional setting, 7.5 hours, 6 subject areas, not happening anymore. And I'm not pretending to have the answers, but this is where you as the educator, and my whole journey from the time that I knew I wanted to create my own platform was to give educators a voice. And not even give it to you, but to empower you to use it. You are smart. Oh my gosh, we are freaking educators. We're supposed to be the smartest people on the planet. And if we can't come up with the solution, and I'm not talking about a one size fit all, but if we can come up with a solution for our schools and our communities, like where you are, the answer is already inside of you. Now, you may need someone to help you guide through it as a team or a district or whatever the case may be. But this is the time to step back and say, all these years I've been teaching this and I don't remember it ever being a benefit to me. Why am I continuing to teach it? Don't you always hear people say, I didn't learn this in school? Well, now this is the time to figure out what all the things that you didn't learn in school. Now we have the opportunity and the space and the freedom, or we should have the space and the freedom to revamp or just totally redo the curriculum. Hello, educators. How about we do that? I'm not saying that it's all the educators' responsibility, because that's not what they were trained to do. This is the time to collaborate. And I think I'm going into point number 4. Yes, this is the time to actually collaborate with those businesses and having people come in. And no one said this to me. We're in the training and development industry. Once you get outside of the education profession, how people approach training and development, they put something out. They go on this journey with people, helping them to see, yes, you're doing it right. No, you're not doing it right. Let me help you understand that a little deeper. And then they give them time to implement, and then the person comes back to them and say, hey, did I do this right? We don't necessarily do that over here. It's like we give out information, then you show me what you know, and then I'll tell you yes or no, but I don't give you the time to really develop and sit with it and help you see the end goal. A lot of times the end goal is going to the next grade or passing the test. And I know I have educators that are with me on this. I talk to some of you. I'm in some Facebook groups. I see you. This is the time for you to say, hey, this is what I'm doing. And I'm saying this because I was like a rebel teacher. If something did not feel right or sound right, I stood up and said, no, not for my students. As for me in my classroom, this is what we are going to do because I wholeheartedly believe it. And then I said, you have to give me time and space to do it. And that's the same thing that needs to happen now. So all of us who know that there's a bigger purpose to help train and develop, whether it's K-12 children or you're over faculty and staff, whatever the case may be, if you know that there's a shift that needs to occur, I'm calling you out. Make the shift happen. And we need to redefine what virtual learning is. It's an experience. So what experience are you going to create? And you can't create it on your own. This is the time to step out and create those partnerships. What are some universities doing that are creative that we can bring virtually into the K-12 classroom? This is the time to be innovative and creative. The answers is already inside of you. Trust yourself. Number 5, the last one, home stretch. I know that they're talking about funding being cut. I know people are talking about money, the lack of, not having funding, whatever the case may be. There's money out there. So be creative in how you seek funding. And this comes from a mindset of lack. Don't let the threat of not having funding stop you from making good decisions. I know a lot of educators sent home a lot of packets because I had to work with some students. And I was like, why do you have this random packet of work? What does this mean? What what is this? Well, if you decide not to go back, or if you have a large number of students not to go back, this is the time to think about what a packet really should be like. Now, remember, we're already thinking about innovative ways to rewrite the curriculum in a sense. Like, what are we really training and developing kids for? If you're going to send home work, this should be something to where it blows a student's mind. Technology is more than just being on Zoom, being in Google Classrooms. It's more than that. We have to equip our educators with actual technology. And I'm just gonna put out a few. Drones. And yes, this is like, you can't give every teacher a drone. Well, every teacher's not gonna want a drone. You just give it to the ones where it makes sense for them to have drones, and have them work with someone to create these engaging lessons. Because if they come alive, the lesson comes alive, and the kids are gonna lean in more to whether that's the virtual screen or the physical classroom. Think about on the news where the journalist is moving things to the side and they're bringing in information, they're pointing, they're zooming things out, being dynamic. Why don't we have that for our educators? And even if you can't send them home, schools should be equipped with them to where they can go in, use that equipment to create whatever they're going to create, and then distribute it to their students. I'm trying to tell you, we have to think about different ways that we are incorporating technology. This is the time to have the conversation. If we need more financial literacy to take place, because that is going to prepare our students and our faculty to be productive citizens in this society, this is the time for you to sit down and think about artificial intelligence. Start marking things happen, open your minds and think. Look outside of education for inspiration and bring it back in. Every situation is going to be different for every state, every school, every district, every school, and every community. And this is why, going back to the partnerships, it is important for you to sit down, listen to the parents, the caregivers, and the guardians, listen to the students. Oh, what a concept. Listen to your faculty and staff. Everyone should have a voice into what is really important for our community. Do we ever think about why do we start all teaching at the same time? Why are we all starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, 9:30 in the morning? If anything, the pandemic has showed us that kids aren't logging on at the same times like they would if they were in school. If they were in a traditional setting, they had to be there. So of course they looked alert, but they're not. What if we only did a couple of hours in the morning, and then you work with the team, and then you have a teacher that works in the afternoon or even at night, because of the different dynamics that are happening in the household. And again, this is not a one size fit all. You have to really look at the data of your school, and this can even be, I don't think this could be district wide. It has to be school and community based, and then you have to have some people willing to do it. I've talked to some educators. I know some people who are like, look, can I clock in at 4 o'clock? And even when I was an instructional coach, I didn't have some teachers didn't come alive until about 1:30. I'm like, sir, we've been here since 7 a.m. He was like, look, that's just when I get into it. And I'm like, we're about to go home at 2:30. you know? But looking back on it, maybe he would have been more effective had he actually started his day at 12, 1 o'clock, you know? So have we thought about creating those shifts? Have we asked educators, hey, are you willing to teach a later shift and not all day? You know, get your stuff done in the morning and be logged on, you know, maybe from 3 to 6 or whatever the case may be. Have we thought about that? I don't think we have. The other part of that, have we thought about maybe 5 days is not conducive? Like, what are we doing here? What if we're 3 days on and 2 days off? And not off in the sense of it's a free for all, but either you're rotating or you're allowing the material to sink in and allowing practice time, virtual office hours, to where if someone has a question, they can log in through a set time and it's not really you teaching. So it's just a lot of things. And I'm only saying this because I've experienced all of this and I know it's possible. Not easy, definitely not easy, but possible. But we have to give ourselves the space and the opportunity to do that. Another thing I want to say, going back into how we're training and developing, it's not all on the educators. Educators are not psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, counselors, nurses. We're not all of those. If you want us to be all of those, then you provide the level of training for educators to do that. So it's not fair to ask educators to do all of that. Why don't we have like psychologists or psychiatrists coming in, even virtually talking with the students? They have telehealth to where you can phone a counselor or phone a therapist or Skype or Zoom a therapist. Do we have these systems in place for our students? Because it's not fair for a teacher to think about instruction. And yes, the educators do care for their students. So I'm not saying that they don't, but there's another layer that if you're not trained to really help someone, you take on all of that yourself and you're not able to be your full person because you keep taking your oxygen mask off. Bottom line, there's no one size fits all. We are not going to be the same. And I know I hear people saying, wait till we get back to normal. We're not going to be back to normal, nor should we want to be back to normal. The education system has been the same for about 60 years. And this is our opportunity to really make history. Some of you will and some of you won't, but I'm with the people who will, because I'm all for let's bust this mold wide open and really redefine what it means to educate for transformation. I've said several things. Again, how are we implementing our personal development as well as our professional development that needs to be incorporated into teacher preparation programs, whether that's traditional through higher ed or some sort of alternative certification. Personal development has to be a requirement more than ever. Redefining how we open up our schools and our semesters and not just leading with content. We can no longer lead with content. A student has to feel safe and whole before they can learn. They may not tell you that, but it's our job to help them verbalize, whether we bring some other people in to help them or you train educators to help students to get to that point. Number 3, like breaking the mold, redefining the curriculum and just what it means to prepare students for the real world. What are those key essential things? How do we use algebra and how is that making sense? And I'm not even talking about just giving real world problems. We're beyond that. How is this making sense for if there's another pandemic? That's what I mean. Number 4, true partnerships. How are we bringing in those businesses and universities that are thriving? How are we having them to be a resource for our education system? And the same thing with universities. How are we partnering with those businesses to make our universities better as we prepare for the world of this new world of being in the pandemic? And number 5, how are we distributing materials? What does it look like to send information home now? And it has to go beyond packets. What does our technology look like? What are we investing? What type of technology are we investing in? That is my time with you today. Those are just my thoughts, a message to educators as we prepare for the future, because we are not going back and nor should we want to. I am Dr. Vernita, and thank you so much for listening and learning with me. I will see you next time.